Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we're tackling something pretty huge. India's economic rise. You've probably felt that buzz, right? India becoming this major global player. So our mission here is to cut through the noise and look at the six sort of core pillars driving this surge, give you a clear picture of what's really going on. Some of this might actually surprise you, and the global impact. Immense. So yeah, let's get into it.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is how these different forces are, coming together right now. It's not just one thing.
Exactly. Convergence. Okay, so driver number one, it's foundational, really. India's population, it's incredibly young and still growing. Our sources point to a median age of just 28. I mean, that's remarkably young compared to most big economies. But for you listening, what does a young population like that really mean for an economy this massive? Are there challenges too, like finding enough jobs?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So, yes, a young population gives you that demographic dividend economists talk about. Basically, a bigger chunk of your people are in their prime working years. Fewer dependents compared to aging countries. That potentially frees up capital, right? For investment, for innovation. India is looking at potentially decades of this youthful wave. It's a unique spot to be in globally, provided, of course, they create the quality jobs needed. That's the key challenge.
Right, so this huge pool of young workers is a massive asset. But they need somewhere to work, places to live. Which brings us nicely to driver number two. Rapid urbanization and the infrastructure boom that goes with it. Cities are just expanding like crazy.
Yeah, and it's not just the physical stuff, like you see the new highways, the railways going up everywhere. That's happening. But the digital infrastructure build out is just as massive, maybe even more transformative in some ways. Think about smart cities using tech in urban planning or digital India. That's huge.
Digital India,
Oh, yeah.
getting government services, banking, all that online.
Exactly. It's bringing millions into the formal economy, connecting people. These aren't just, vanity projects. They're changing how people live and work, creating this environment for more growth, more investment.
Okay, connecting the dots there.
Yeah.
Now, number three is probably what a lot of people think of first with India's economy.
Right.
That booming services and especially the tech sector. What makes India's IT and business services such a global leader?
Well, it's the depth, really, the sheer size of the talent pool and the fact they've built this mature ecosystem over decades. It's not just about cost anymore, though that's still a factor. It's about skill, experience. This attracts huge foreign investment, drives exports, and you've got these globally known tech hubs, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Gurugram.
Right, the Indian Silicon Valleys, so to speak.
Kind of, yeah. They're centers for everything from software dev to complex back office stuff, even cutting edge AI research now. That depth is hard to replicate.
Okay, powerful stuff. Fourth driver, pro-market reforms. We hear about things like the GST, the goods and services tax, and making it easier to do business. But again, for you listening, maybe an entrepreneur or an investor, what's the real world impact? Is it actually making a difference?
I think the key words are simplification and predictability. The GST, for example, replaced this incredibly complex web of state and central taxes. It wasn't perfect initially, but it's a huge step. And the digitization of government services, that's a game changer. Getting permits, filing taxes, stuff that took ages, tons of paperwork.
Red tape central.
Right. Now, so much of it is online, faster, more transparent. It just makes the whole environment less daunting, more attractive for business, especially smaller ones, and definitely for foreign investors looking for clarity.
Makes sense. Okay, fifth driver. This is more of a deep structural shift. People moving from agriculture into industry and services. Basically, fewer people on farms, more in factories and offices.
Yeah, and that's a classic sign of economic development. You're moving labor from lower productivity work like subsistence farming into higher productivity sectors. Generally, that means higher incomes for those people,
Yeah.
which then boosts domestic demand, people buying more stuff. It fuels this internal growth cycle. It's a shift from agrarian towards a more diversified modern economy.
Got it. And finally, the sixth driver feels very current.
Yeah.
Global realignment. We see companies everywhere talking about diversifying supply chains, moving away from putting all their eggs in the China basket. How's India fitting into that picture? Are they really becoming that key alternative?
Look, it's definitely a major factor now. Companies are actively looking to de-risk the whole China plus one strategy you hear about. And India offers, well, it offers scale, first off, a huge domestic market, large labor force, but also critically, it's a democracy, has an established legal system, an increasingly skilled workforce, lots of English speakers. For many Western companies, that political stability and strategic alignment looks pretty attractive compared to the uncertainties elsewhere. It's internal readiness meeting this big external opportunity.
Right. It's like all these pieces are clicking into place at the same time. So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, our listener? I think the theme is pretty clear.
Yeah.
India's momentum, it's real. It's built on these strong fundamentals. We talked about the demographics, the infrastructure push, the tech strength, plus those reforms making a difference, and just that massive internal market.
Yeah, and maybe the final thought to leave people with is the world is definitely watching India. But what's really provocative is this sense that it might just be getting started. If this trajectory holds for another, say, 10 years, think about what that means for the global economic map, for trade, for innovation, for, well, everything. The implications are pretty profound.